I stepped into the ballroom's shimmering glow where crystal chandeliers spilled light like waterfalls of diamonds. Delicate gold and ivory drapes cascaded from towering ceilings, framing a scene of opulence that should have felt like a dream. A gentle piano melody floated through the air, weaving with laughter and the soft clink of champagne glasses into a symphony of celebration and quiet tension in my chest. The polished dance floor reflected every pair of shoes and swish of designer gowns, yet beneath the glamour I felt a chill, as if the room's brightness only magnified my own shadowed thoughts. My mother Patricia stood on the raised platform, clutching a pristine flute of bubbly. She smiled down at my sister Emily, the flawless bride, at the center of this Austin, Texas fairy tale. Her opening remarks were classic. Everyone expects the typical mother of the bride speech. Her voice carried over the microphone, then paused for effect. I gripped my chair's velvet edge, heart pounding, every eye in the room fixed on her. Then Patricia lifted her glass and declared, "And to the daughter I've always been most proud of." Time seemed to slow, my pulse raced. Part of me felt a small thrill imagining that perhaps this moment was finally mine. But another part froze, sensing the hidden dagger behind those words. The champagne flute in my hand began to slip, as though gravity had seized every buried memory, every unspoken hurt I carried. And then came the sound, a soft clink, as glass met marble, followed by a violent crash. Silence swallowed the hall. The music stopped mid-note, replaced by gasps and the rustle of astonished whispers. I stood there, shards of crystal and wine droplets glittering like fallen stars across the white tablecloth, my vision blurring with tears. In that instant, I was no longer just Emily's older sister or a dedicated neurologist at Austin Memorial. I was Madison, fully awake to the shattering illusion of this family's perfection, and I knew nothing would ever be the same. Within just a few short months, my life seemed engulfed by an invisible shadow. It all began when I received the news that the board at Austin Memorial Hospital had withdrawn their proposal to promote me to head of neurological research, even though I had prepared a flawless presentation and received glowing feedback from colleagues. Rumors about my professional conduct spread overnight, fueled by baseless emails and whispered accusations carefully passed to key decision-makers. I reached out to Dr. Lawson, my trusted friend, only to have him avoid me, leaving me standing alone in the hospital's coldly lit corridors. Then came the heartbreak. Nathan, the man I thought would stand by me forever, entered my life like a gentle breeze, only to snuff out my flickering candle of hope. One spring evening, he called with a hesitant voice, "I'm not sure I'm in the right place." I listened in silence, my heart shattering like fragile glass, as he offered an incomplete apology. All the sweet memories in hospital hallways, the red roses he gave me, turned suddenly bitter. Before I could recover, an unexpected flood swept through my South Congress apartment. Water gushed over tiled floors and soaked bookshelves. Furniture floated as a mournful symphony of dripping echoes filled the room. With no other choice, I reached out to my grandmother Carol, who welcomed me into her cozy North Loop bungalow. She prepared a small room with warm blankets and the lingering scent of fresh cookies on the kitchen counter. As I assessed the damage, I caught her concerned yet tender gaze, wondering whether she sensed the depth of my despair beneath her comforting smile. Surprisingly, Emily, my sister, seemed endlessly reassuring. She'd call each night whispering, "Don't worry, sis. Everything will be okay." Then she offered her downtown loft, a 45-minute drive from the hospital, as a temporary refuge. I thanked her but declined, unwilling to add rush-hour anxiety to my burdens. In that moment, I realized that superficial support only highlighted the distance between us. These consecutive misfortunes were more than random. They were puzzle pieces hinting at a deeper scheme waiting to be uncovered, and I vowed I wouldn't stop until I uncovered the truth. Sometimes when I return to the old wooden house in Barton Hills, Austin, Texas, childhood memories wash over me like relentless waves. In the cozy living room stands a finely carved wooden shelf displaying trophies and certificates as undeniable proof Emily's litany of achievements: first place in the Austin District Piano Competition, inter-school swimming medals, exemplary conduct awards proudly exhibited. My own accomplishments. Mere sheets of recognition buried in the bottom drawer of my desk, never to be admired. Whenever my parents entertained friends, the first words out of their mouths were always, "This is Emily, our little angel," and I faded into the background like a silent shadow. Each morning as I trudged to the breakfast table, Mother Patricia would hand me a cup of tea with a look of thinly veiled impatience. "Madison, why aren't you as outgoing and charming as your sister?" She'd then turn to Emily, her lips curling into a proud smile. "She barely studies and still scores A's." Father Robert would nod gently and add, "Madison, you should ask Emily for her study tips." I swallowed my resentment, but inside it felt like a knife carving deeper into my heart. I escaped into books as my sanctuary. Under the warm glow of my desk lamp in the upstairs room, I pored over formulas and exam outlines, silently promising myself I will be better than Emily. Yet whenever I glanced at the glossy swim jacket hanging in the corner, I remembered Emily's whispered taunt when I was 12. "Aren't you jealous, sis?" My eyes stung with tears as I wondered, is my failure only because I'm not perfect enough? Those constant comparisons formed an invisible map in my mind, a path to success paved with the fear of being left behind. From that emotional scar came a fierce drive to succeed, and simultaneously a smoldering resentment. I realized that to rise above, I had to define my own worth, but I also began to see how the hunger to prove myself could become a trap, propelling me into an endless race of comparison. The moment I received the invitation to Emily and Jason's engagement party at the Hamilton estate, my heart raced uncontrollably. The grand oak doors swung open into a cozy library lined with towering bookshelves under soft golden lights that flickered over family portraits from another era. I was guided past arched doorways into the hushed warmth where guests sipped wine and exchanged polite chatter. I followed the murmur of voices deeper inside, trying to mask my growing anticipation. Halfway through the room, I suddenly heard Emily's hushed voice on the phone. "Just keep quiet and wait until the wedding day for the surprise." Her tone wavered with urgency and a hint of panic. I froze, mind whirling with questions. Quiet about what? Who is she talking to? And why? I held my breath, edging forward to catch every word. Emily lowered her head and pressed a hand to her mouth as she continued, "Mom's on board, Dad hasn't caught on. We only need to finalize the last step." A chill ran down my spine. She sounded complicit in some secret scheme, something I, as her sister, had never suspected. Each whispered phrase cut through me like a knife, reigniting the suspicions I'd buried deep inside. I stood motionless, staring at the antique shelves, my sense of security evaporating. What felt like warm light moments before now felt icy. Outside the library, the gentle clinking of glasses reminded me of the distance between us. Emily, the beloved bride-to-be, and me, Madison, who in theory should have been her closest ally, yet in practice was always on the outside. Before Emily hung up, I cleared my throat softly. "Who are you talking to?" She straightened instantly, panic flashing in her eyes, then brushed it off. "Oh, sorry. I thought it was just the photographer shifting our schedule." She forced a quick smile. I nodded, but told myself, this isn't just about a schedule change. As I walked away from the library, I glanced back at Emily's small silhouette among the rows of books and vowed that this was only the first step in uncovering the mystery. The first seed of doubt had been planted, and I wouldn't rest until I unearthed the truth behind that whispered conversation. 3 weeks after the engagement party, I drove to my grandmother Carol's North Loop bungalow for a much-needed respite from the chaos consuming my life. The red-tiled roof peeked through ancient oak branches, offering a serenity that sharply contrasted my turmoil. Grandma ushered me into a plush armchair beside a crackling fireplace, its warmth enveloping the hushed room. She poured me a cup of fragrant chamomile tea, setting it on a weathered wooden tray, her eyes tinged with concern. "Have you noticed anything unusual?" She asked, her tone soft yet unwavering. I fell silent, staring at a childhood photo of Emily and me grinning by the pool, and felt old shadows stirring. "She seems too perfect," I confessed, the unease clear in my voice. Grandma nodded, placing her hand on the table, her gaze sharpening. "I've seen it for years." I frowned, surprised by her candor. She recounted how Patricia, my mother, had once harbored jealousy toward her own sister, witnessing petty schemes, hidden letters, whispered slanders. "A gifted child isn't always a kind one." Grandma continued, looking straight at me. "Don't ignore your instincts, dear. Your gut is warning you because something isn't right." I swallowed hard, feeling both relieved and pressured. "You think Emily is hiding something?" I asked cautiously. Grandma offered a bittersweet smile. "You'll discover it in time. But remember, in a family, the deepest secrets lurk behind the friendliest smiles." She draped a knitted shawl over my shoulders, her fingers gently brushing back my hair. "The seed of doubt has been planted. Now you must water it." I left her home transformed. It wasn't just the blatant career sabotage or recent shocks. It was a deliberate conspiracy emerging from the shadows. My grandmother had ignited the flame of suspicion, and I knew I couldn't rest until I unearthed the truth at its root. 1 week before the wedding, I drove to my parents' lakeside villa in Westlake for the final dress rehearsal. The house buzzed with activity. Bridesmaid Julie arranging flower corsages, stylist Casey rifling through hairpins, and setting a full-length mirror at center stage. The scent of silk and lace mingled with fresh rose bouquets, crafting a mood both romantic and chaotic. In the fitting room, Emily stood with her back turned as the seamstress adjusted the hem of her floor-length gown. I carefully guided pins along the delicate lace edge, offering a reassuring smile. "Just a dress run-through," I said softly. She nodded, eyes following the shimmer of crystal beads. Then she slipped her phone from her clutch, pressed it to her ear, and whispered urgently, "She'll be there, but she won't cause a stir." Mom's on board, Dad's still in the dark. Just one final move left. My heart lurched, every nerve alight. Casey's footsteps halted and a hairpin clattered. Emily ended the call too quickly to catch more, but I'd heard enough. "Who are you talking to?" I asked, voice trembling. She spun around, her expression hardening for a split second, then forced a smile. "Oh, you heard wrong." It was the coordinator about the video schedule. I tried to focus on tucking the lace back into place, but my pulse thundered in my ears. The soft fitting room lights suddenly felt harsh, as if they exposed hidden truths. Each stitch I made felt brittle. Whenever Emily lifted her veil for another adjustment, I recalled Grandma's warning, "The seed of doubt has been planted." By the time the rehearsal ended and everyone applauded the perfect bride, I carried only a heavy thought. Nothing perfect comes without a cost. Drawing in a cold breath, I vowed I'll watch every step. No secret will slip past me unnoticed. Early that morning, I arrived at the Rose Garden of Hamilton Estate in Austin, Texas, where 300 white chairs were meticulously arranged into 6 straight rows. The air was perfumed with rose petals, dawn's glow danced across the leaves, and a gentle breeze whispered through the ancient gates. I stood beside my father, Robert, and my mother, Patricia, in the front row, my heart heavy with the doubts I'd been suppressing. Before me, Emily stepped beneath the floral arch, her wedding gown a shimmering cascade of crystal-like lace, and her hand trembled as she reached for James's arm. After James's vows concluded, polite applause broke out, followed by the best man, Mark, sharing warm and humorous memories of the couple. Then Julie, the lone bridesmaid, offered an emotional tribute about sisterhood. Tears glistened on my cheeks. My father rose next to speak of his 2 daughters and the importance of family, but his words barely registered in my mind. Finally, my mother, Patricia, stood and raised her flute of champagne high. She smiled gently and began, "Everyone knows what a typical mother of the bride speech sounds like. But today, I want to speak about the daughter I've always been proud of." My heart stopped. The entire garden seemed to hold its breath. Emily's shoulders tensed, and James looked stunned. Patricia continued, her gaze sweeping the audience before resting on me. "Madison, my eldest, has endured everything in silence. I know how you lost your promotion due to baseless rumors, how your relationships fell apart, and even how you faced that flood that destroyed your apartment. Yet you overcame it all." In that instant, the champagne glass felt impossibly heavy. It slipped from my fingers and shattered on the stone beneath us, the sharp crash, shattering the brief hush and unleashing a wave of murmurs throughout the garden. I froze, staring at the glimmering crystal fragments at my feet. That was the moment I realized my mother had chosen to reveal the truth, publicly bringing me into the spotlight instead of keeping me hidden. The shock shattered every illusion of a perfect wedding. I drew in a deep breath, warmth flooding through my stunned senses, and knew I'd never be the same again. I snapped awake to the ringing echo of shattered glass still hanging in the hush of the ceremony. Guests gasped, their eyes fixed on me. Mother stood silent, lips pressed tight. My survival instinct screamed, "Get out!" I rose on unsteady legs, my mind reeling as the layers of my skirt suddenly felt like shackles, each pleat a chain holding me back. I bolted toward the ornate wooden door at the garden's edge, its carvings blurred in my panic. I shoved it open with a screech that seemed to shake the entire estate. Without a second thought, I sprinted down the marble hall, bare feet pounding across the cold stone's glass fragments, slicing at my skin but failing to slow me. Outside, the cool garden air hit me like a lifeline. Hundreds of rosebuds brushed against my arms, their fragrance sweet and vivid. Dawn light filtered through the leaves, casting dancing beams across dew-kissed grass. I dropped to my knees, burying my face in my hands, tasting the sharp tang of tears mingled with morning dew. The distant hum of chatter, clinking glasses, and music faded into a blur. Only my ragged breaths and the pounding of my heart remained. After a moment that stretched, I lifted my head and surveyed the silent garden. No one had followed. I was alone amid the rose petals in a peace that felt both fragile and healing.